Hey guys, welcome to Module 4. In this module, we're going to go over something called information architecture, which is basically how you're going to organize your site. So how are you going to architect the information that is on your site in such a way that your users can easily and quickly find what they need. Because if they can't find what they need with a relatively easy path of links and clicks, they're going to go somewhere where they can. And so we're going to talk about that. And then we're also going to introduce some more HTML and some more CSS. So, okay, let's go ahead and get started. So, whether you have a blog, which this was my blog for a really long time, it was called Stream to Stream. So whether you have a blog or you have some kind of news aggregation site like Gizmodo, or some kind of maybe an industry site like Gink and Gasoline, which is another fly fishing site, all of these have a lot of information that needs to be presented concisely, but also completely. And so you need to be able to tell your user just enough that if they want to know more, they can go somewhere else where they can get all of the information. And all of those steps need to be very clear to them. And so that is actually called information architecture. And so as your site gets bigger, you're going to logically have more and more information, right? So the site that you're creating for this class is a really small, concise site. It doesn't have a lot of pages. It doesn't have a lot of extraneous information. It just basically presents a unique set of pages over and over. And that will not be true if you were to go work in the industry. Whenever I worked for housing here at Tech, the website that I managed had several hundred separate pages that were all connected together. And so you have to think logically in how you're going to organize this information, particularly if you're going to work on a really, really big site. Your structure has got to scale with your information. So your nav bar that works really well right now for maybe 4 or 5 pages is probably going to be really terrible and really hard to use if you have 100 different links on it, right? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And so you're going to have to architect this information. And the more forethought you can put into the creation of a big site, the better off you will be. So there's some discussion within the web design community about the difference between information architecture, which we're going to call IA, and usability. Information architecture is not usability. You could go over to other departments on campus and take a class all about usability. We're not really going to talk about it a lot in this class because, quite frankly, we're not advanced enough as designers to worry about it. It would just get in your way. Usability really is whether your users know where to go. So can they tell that a button is a button? Can they tell that a link is a link? Right? Can they tell that if they scroll over the picture, something is going to happen? Information architecture is whether you built your site so that the user can find the information that they need. So information architecture is about the presentation of your content. Usability is about whether or not the user can perceive how to interact. Okay, so if you have questions about that, please just email me and ask. I'm more than happy to explain all of that over time, but it's kind of outside of the bounds of our class to worry too much about usability. So with that being said, I have 7 really simple tips for information architecture, and I want you to use these in the card sorting assignment that is part of this module. Okay, so number 1, be very methodical. Understand the site, its content, its users. So in my case, I had a fly fishing website that presented various fly fishing related content to users that were typically other fly fishermen. Think about how your users are going to interact with the site and for what purpose. So if you're creating a health insurance website, users need to be able to very quickly get to the login so they can see how much they owe. They need to be able to be very it needs to be very quick for them to be able to find how much premiums are and all of that kind of stuff. And so they need to be able to find the monetary information very quickly. All of the extraneous fine print probably does not need to be presented on the index page. So a path through a website might look something like this. So you might start off all the way at the top page, the index page, right up here, and then you come down to another page and you link there, and then that page links to here, and then you link finally down to this page, and you end up where you wanted to be. And that's all well and good, but we need to understand that each one of these is a link that the user had to be able to find and to know that it was actually going to take them to the right place. So the link name had to be meaningful to them, or else they wouldn't have clicked it. Okay, number 2, keep your structure as balanced as possible. I use what's called the 4-8 principle. And so if you had 4 top-level options with 8 under each of those options, then you would have a 32-page site. And I'm going to show you what I mean by 4 top-level options here in just a second. On this site, you have 4 top links, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. And each one of these, let's say that you scrolled over it and 8 things dropped down. Okay, that would give you this page plus 8 more. Okay, or this could just be a placeholder that you scroll over and all the 8 pages underneath it are separate links. Okay, so make sure that you are staying balanced with that. If you had, 32 different links right here across the top, that's not really going to do you a lot of good. It's going to be hard to read. They're not going to know where to go. That's really difficult. So you need to design for skimming, scanning, and jumping. So look, the reality of life is that not everyone, you included, me included, reads every word on every page of a website. Instead, we read something like this. So these are heat maps from eye tracking. So you start up in the top left, you kind of cross the first line, and then you come down a little bit and kind of skim around, and then you come down a little bit further. You might look at the little aside box over here. You see that that's true here, and you see that that's true here on this Google page. So we don't read everything. And so you need to put your really important information, the paths by which users are going to find the most important information, you need to put that at the top left if possible. You need to make it big, and you need to make it really obvious. Okay, design text that wants to be read. Your layout is going to guide your users to your text, and that means that really tip 3 and tip 4 here are intimately connected. So headings and subheadings and graphics help guide your user. It also means that you're going to have to watch what font face you use. So there are some fonts out there that are really cool looking and really great and really, really hard to read. And so there's really 2 keys when we talk about typography, legibility and readability. Legibility is mostly a function of the typeface design. So some typefaces are just really, really legible, and some of them just really, really aren't. And so, some of these are really, really obvious and legible, and some of them just are going to be really hard to read because of the ornateness, or maybe, in this case, the kerning between the B and the I is so close together, and the T and the Y is so close together, it makes it just really hard to read. So the second part of typography is readability. Readability really is how it's used. So are you inviting your reader, hey, I want you to read this. I want you to go here first. And so in this case, you can see that they very clearly want you to read this heading first. Okay? And what I think is kind of funny about this is that it's a school of engineering, and they use this kind of fun, almost like a take on Comic Sans, really. And so it's an interesting way to say, hey, yes, we're engineers, and we're going to be very methodical, but we're also going to have a lot of fun in what we do. And so, they say, discover how today's rock star scientists and engineers are making our world a better place. And so the font adds to that feeling, and the way that they're using it adds to the entire emotion of the whole situation. Okay, so number 5, design with user paths in mind. So user paths are the ways in which a user will commonly progress through the site to find a certain amount of information. So you can use links, guides even. You could say, hey, are you trying to find, how to upgrade your life insurance? Click here. So guide them to what you want. Give them short little text blocks that will describe where they need to go and help them really find their way. So this is that user path from earlier. So in this case, this means the user would have to click 1, 2, 3 times, really, and possibly a 4th time depending on what they're wanting to look at within this page. So that's a lot of clicks for them to find some small, relatively insignificant piece of information. The other reality is you need to design for the lack of user paths as well. Google makes it to where probably what happened was this person Googled, Dartmouth dorm setups or whatever, and it took them right here. Instead of going to dartmouth.edu or whatever their website is and clicking through these different places, the reality is that most of us now just go straight to a site. And because we go straight to a site, you need to have your site constructed in such a way that even if they come to a page that is 15 levels deep within your website, they still need to be able to navigate from there and know where they're going. Number 6 is don't get cute. Keep it simple, stupid is really kind of the whole idea here. I say think of it as a shoe. It's not an airplane, right? A shoe is very simple. It has a rubber sole, maybe a cloth upper, and some laces, right? If you're really fancy, it might have a tongue. If you're really, really fancy, it might be made of leather. But in none of those cases is it nearly as complicated as an airplane, right? Airplanes are exceedingly complicated. They're very, very complex. Websites should not be airplanes. They should be shoes. Don't call it Jobapalooza or something really fancy when you could just call it jobs. Let's say you have a magazine website where you're trying to advertise that you have graphic design jobs open. Just call it jobs, or hey, work with us, or something like that. Don't call it Jobapalooza or get your hiring on or something stupid. This isn't Words with Friends. It's a website, so there aren't any points for using more letters. Okay. Number 7, analyze your information architecture. Analytic tools are so easy to implement now, and they are one of those things that is kind of outside of the bounds of this class, less because of complexity and actually because of its simplicity. You could spend approximately an hour reading about Google Analytics and use it on any site that you want and be very, very effective with it without having to take a class on it. Google Analytics will tell you where your users are going and where they're not. And if you find a place where you thought that users are really going to be directed to a page and they're just simply not going there, if you can see that they aren't going there, then change it. Maybe they don't understand the links that are getting them there. Maybe that's just not a page that's important to your users. And ultimately, it comes down to this. Web design is about iterations. Iterations happen over time. So you launch a site and you notice that there's some problems, so you make small changes. You notice that there's some problems, so you make small changes. Maybe you remove some glitches or some bugs or maybe some broken links, and you try again. And over time, you're trying to make it easier and easier and easier for your users to interact with your site. If you want to think of it in terms of a graph, the overall, and this is a misnomer to use usability here, really, it's the likability of the site or the pleasance of the entire experience. It might look something like this, and so over time you're going to get better and better. Okay, so let's talk through really, really fast some information architecture examples. Here is CNN's website. This is from 2012, so this is kind of old, but they haven't really changed it since then. As you can see, they have a lot of information, and one of the ways that they help you guide very quickly to the information that you want is by using this top little in the news section, right? If you want to go to tech, scroll over to tech, it will open up an entire box down here that will have a lot of other links for you that are all related to technology and electronics. So you could go there if you wanted to, or if you were just interested in the recovery from Hurricane Sandy, you could go and click on Sandy recovery. So they organize theirs in such a way that the articles that are going to get the most eyeballs, the places where people are want to go the fastest. So why are they coming to CNN.com? Well, maybe they wanted to know more about Black Friday shopping or whatever. They're going there for a very specific reason, and so CNN is going to give them that information first. Any tertiary information they're going to put up here in the links. Okay, REI is a large outdoor retailer. They present a lot of information, but it's all related to sales, right? So if they bury all of their men's outdoor hiking pants deep within the structure of the website, they're never going to sell any hiking pants because you won't be able to find them. So they organize their site in a very clear way so that you as the user can find what you're trying to purchase very quickly. Otherwise, the reality is you're going to either go to another site or you're just going to go into a store somewhere else and spend money elsewhere. So they need to present their information very, very quickly. The Oatmeal, which is my probably favorite comic ever. I use the Oatmeal a lot whenever I teach in-person classes, just to kind of start off as an icebreaker. And so the oatmeal presents an interesting case for information architecture because he has things that he's trying to sell, right? You can buy posters, you can buy shirts, all of that. But he also has these free web comics. They're long form web comics. And so you need to be able to find those really quickly. But then he also gives you this most popular box where he says, hey, look, you might want to read, some thoughts and musings about making things for the web. Or you might just want to read what people are clicking on the most, which in this case is My Dog, the Paradox. So in this case, he's thought through, okay, what's the most important thing to make my article or my section, this main area in my design, and what should I put in the aside over here? What might people want to see there? Are they going to want to see what they can buy? Well, probably not. Probably what they're going to want to see is, where's everybody else looking? What are other users finding funny? So then that's where they go. Okay, if you have any questions about information architecture, please do email me. One of your assignments for this module is to kind of reorganize a site for a dentist. So you're going to do a thing called card sorting, which there's a small YouTube video you're going to go watch about it, and then you're going to do it yourself, and then you're going to write up a small thing and turn that into Blackboard. It's all explained on the assignment. And if you have any questions, please do send me an email, and I will see you next time.